Okay, so I'm on my way home from work, and there's something I've been wanting to talk about for a little bit, but I've been kind of hesitant. Just trying to, I guess, process my thoughts on it, give time to, find a good way to approach the topic. But I just want to say, I'm gonna do my very best to engage in this topic without, getting overwhelmed and with frustration and stuff, because it's a topic that's hits very close to home for me. But I'm gonna do my best. Lord help me, give me the words that you want me to say. In His name, pray, amen. So a couple weeks ago, Pastor Phillip Mitchell of 2819, I believe it is. I can't think of it right now, but Pastor Phillip Mitchell of 2019 Church in Atlanta made some comments during a sermon talking about authority, and he said some pretty controversial, to say the least, things on the platform. And what he said was that he was preaching on authority and respecting authority and obeying the law of the land and stuff like that, which is fine. And then at one point he started talking about his own personal experience dealing with police officers, or had a particular experience he had with a police officer who put a gun to his head and everything. You can go watch the sermon for yourself. He talks about the story. But the particular part that struck me the most as okay, yeah, we need to talk about this, and I'm sure most people have heard about it, is the part where he says, stop blaming white cops for shooting black kids. Teach your black kids to obey authority. And I just, God, I'm not gonna lie, that messed me up, because it's kind of crazy to me that in 2025, right, we're still saying stuff like this. But then again, if you look at the progression of the church, specifically the black church, and how it's kind of starting to assimilate into the modern day capitalistic Christian industrial complex, it's no real surprise why stuff like this is being said. I can't speak to Phillip Mitchell's character. I don't know him personally. I've never sat under him, never been to his church. I listened to the whole sermon. The version of the sermon that I heard did not have that portion in it. So I can only assume that they went back and re-recorded during a different service, put up a different service recording than what was posted online. I'm assuming somebody must have been watching live, heard that, ran it back, recorded it, and then uploaded it, to social media. And he says in the version that is uploaded currently on YouTube, at one point that he kind of alludes to having a conversation with another fellow pastor who happened to be there that Sunday, and I guess he doesn't say specifically, he told me I said something wrong and I needed to change it, but he says they had a conversation about people are still coming, so you're good, just and basically that, I guess, another person had called him on what he said. And again, it wasn't specific enough to know for sure. I didn't even realize what he was saying. My wife had to be clarify what she thought he meant by it. So I was like, okay, maybe. But it's been a few weeks since then. I think it's been about 2 weeks since that whole situation happened, and I haven't heard anything from him or posted to his the church's YouTube or anything about an apology for saying that or anything, which I personally feel should have happened. But hey, that's not the choice that he made. Okay, that's fine. That was a decision that he made. But I feel like, well, first let's address what was said. Stop blaming white cops for killing black kids. I just feel like there is no reason, there's no situation that I can think of. None of these situations that we are aware of where a white cop shot an unarmed black child, or an unarmed black teenager, or an unarmed black man. None of those situations did any of those unarmed black boys, black teens, black men, black women, black people who were murdered by cops, none of them did anything to warrant that. None of them did anything to make themselves a threat. None of them did anything to, there's no reason that, even if they were committing crimes, which is debatable on most of these situations, as far as I know, there's no real concrete evidence that any of these people in any of these situations had actually committed a crime. But that's neither here nor there. Whether they committed a crime or not, they deserve to be, due process is a thing. They should have survived the encounter to be held accountable for if they did anything. But for some reason, all of these situations, the black people just end up dead. And for you as a pastor, a black pastor who pastors a predominantly black church in a predominantly black city in America, knowing the history of police and black people in this country, knowing the origins of the police in this country, I feel like it is extremely inflammatory, borderline irresponsible to say something like that to your constituents, to your congregants. Because, again, number one, there's no reason that any of those people should have died. There's just not. If they committed a crime, they should have been arrested and went to jail, or at least been able to go to court to fight whatever issues they had, or to be proven innocent or proven guilty. But they didn't even make it to the back of a cop car in some of these situations. They ended up dead in the street because police officers want to abuse their authority. That's number one. Number two, you cannot respect authority when it's being abused. You can say all day long, like, the main point that he used to demonstrate that point that he was making was the situation where he talked about the police officer who put a gun to his head and told him, I dare you to say something, alluding to, like, if he said anything or talked back, he was going to kill him. Which he said, like, in that moment I had to decide between my ego or my life. And I'm like, I get what you're trying to say, but he was wrong to put you in a position to have to make a decision like that. You shouldn't have to debate, like, your worth as a human being in order to survive. There's no situation where it's never appropriate and never okay for a police officer to behave in any of the ways that we've seen them behave in these situations, including the situation that Phillip Mitchell had himself. That was not right. That was an abuse of power, an abuse of authority, and it shouldn't have happened. So I don't think, and I get what he's saying. He's like, my parents taught me to do this and all that. But all of our parents taught us to be respectful of authorities. I'm sure most of these people who were murdered by police were taught by their parents at some point in their life. Say, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You comply, you do exactly what they tell you to do. We have video evidence of people who did respect authority, who did what they were supposed to do, and still ended up dead at the end of the altercation. So it just doesn't make sense to me that we're still talking about this. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that irritates me the most is that the whole stop blaming white cops for killing black kids is white supremacy. It's an argument that bolsters, is rooted in, and spreads propaganda of white supremacy. These are the things, the talking points that they use whenever there's a situation like this. Well, he should have listened, he should have complied. Even when we do those things and we end up dead, well, there's got to be some legitimate reason that kid is dead, because the police don't ever make mistakes. That's the type of stuff that you're basically saying. Because when he, and I'm not trying to talk to him, and again, like I said, this hits hard for me because I got family who's been abused and assaulted by police officers. I got a cousin who got shot in the face by a police officer. Luckily, it just grazed him. He didn't die. But just because him and his friends were walking down the street and they quote unquote fit the description, he ended up getting shot in the face. I know plenty of stories of people being abused and mishandled and mistreated by police officers just for no reason, just because they're black, because they fit the description. So I feel like the issue with this is not that, oh, you just always have to respect authority. The issue is that authority is being abused regardless of whether or not it is respected. And now, not to say that I don't think authority should be respected. I 100% do. But I believe that authority should be that of, like, obey your parents, listen to your parents because your parents care for you. And authority should always be respected when it's held by somebody whose character is able to sustain them in the place that they've been positioned. If the character does not match up to the level of authority, how can you respect somebody who is wielding power illegitimately? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You can't tell me that all of these cops made a mistake. All of these cops were afraid for their life. I don't believe that. And if you genuinely are afraid for your life, it's because you got problematic, horrible mindsets and stereotypes in your mind about an entire group of people that just look different than you, that live in a different part of town than you do. That's not okay. I can't respect that authority. And you can't tell me that. All I'm saying, bro, we can't keep pushing these narratives. We've been at this for too long. We've been dealing with this for too long. Part of me feels like, again, I don't know Phillip Mitchell personally. I don't know nothing about his story for real. Like, I don't know where he went to seminary. I don't know who he was under. But a lot of these seminaries, majority of these seminaries, are run by white people, which is not inherently bad, but they teach the text from a white perspective. Again, it's not inherently bad, but when you take your negative mindsets about black people and then integrate it into your faith, now we have white supremacist mindsets that are weaved into theology and weaved into the way that we see people and believe that certain people should be treated. And then we use the Bible to justify it. You can't tell me, oh, Jesus said respect authority, and then throw in, well, yeah, that's why black kids keep getting shot by cops, because they don't respect authority, like Jesus said. That ain't got nothing to do with one or the other. Those two things are not related. Now, like, I watched the whole sermon. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the sermon that he preached. I had a problem with those statements. And again, the version of the sermon that I watched on YouTube, I don't believe is the same as the sermon that the clip was taken from. I think it was because they run multiple services. I'm pretty sure they recorded a different service and then uploaded that instead of what was on what I can only assume was the original live stream. So I think, like, here's my thing. After, like, when you look at the progression of the black church, and this is a whole nother separate video that I'll make at some point, because this is something that I've been learning and, like, doing research on in the last few months. But when you look at the progression of the black church from, like, the 1960s, from, like, slavery moving up, the black church was probably the most radical and equitable place up until probably shortly after Dr. King passed. Can't say for sure. I'm still doing my research. I could be wrong. Maybe it was a little bit later. You know what I mean? But during the civil rights movement, the civil rights was pretty much led by the black church. Dr. King, you know, all these people, who were in the church who became like the leaders of the civil rights movement. And the black church was the main arm of civil rights. How do you go from the black church basically rallying and putting together and trying to facilitate the civil rights movement to coming to a place where now we're preaching from the pulpit that white cops can't be blamed for the death of black kids that they're murdering because quote unquote black kids don't obey authority? I just feel like there's a disconnect happening here. And not even to say that only the black church should be involved in civil rights or anything like that. I'm speaking historically what we've seen. And I believe that the church should be the place that is fighting for the rights of every person. But the church has now become more of a propaganda wing for our political ideologies and our capitalistic, you know, desires, more than a community of people who love God and love people. And you can see that in their actions. We're more focused on our Sunday attendance and how many people we got coming in that we can get in to serve, to invest in us with their tithe and all of that. We're more focused on that than actually trying to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, loving each other, loving our neighbors, loving the people who don't believe, and trying to show them that because of who we care for and who we serve, that we also love them and care for them the way that God cares for us. Again, this is a separate video. I'll get to that in another video. But yeah, I just feel like I don't necessarily have a problem with Pastor Mitchell. I think he's a great preacher. He seems to be a great leader from everything I've seen. So I don't necessarily think this is like a never listen to him again sort of thing. Especially because, like I said, I actually listened to the sermon and it wasn't bad. I just think that particular part was offensive. I was definitely offended by it. I'm a father. I got 4 sons. The police brutality is a very important topic for me because I have 4 sons. I just had a daughter in December. That, like, I care very strongly about these issues because I know that when my sons get older, that's a possibility that these are interacting with police is a situation they're gonna have to deal with. There's no way that, like, I will ever see it differently than I do because I have my 4 sons, because I have family members who have been assaulted and abused and brutalized by police, because I have friends that have been mistreated by police, because historically police have mistreated and abused black people. And until something changes, I have to carry myself in a way and teach my sons in a way that these things are not right and they shouldn't happen. And I hate the fact that I'm gonna have to have a conversation with my sons one day and be like, this is something you're gonna have to deal with. It's not right, but this is what you got to deal with. And I don't want to have to teach my sons that you got to act different. I don't want to teach my sons code switching and to survive. I don't think that's right. I think they should be able to live their lives as normal human beings who just happen to be black. You know what I'm saying? Not that they should deny their blackness. That's not what I mean. I just mean that they shouldn't have to change who they are in the confrontation with a police officer because their blackness is scary to people. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, this is a topic for a different video, but I feel very strongly about this. I got all love and respect for Phillip Mitchell. Like I said, I think he's a great preacher. He seems to be a great leader for his church. So I have nothing but respect for him. I just disagree vehemently with the stance of not blaming white cops for killing black kids. I disagree with that 100%. I think the statement in itself and that mindset is horrible. I think it causes more problems in interactions between black and white people. So I definitely disagree with that. But as far as Phillip Mitchell, I would recommend, his sermons to just about anybody, because from what I've heard, I haven't heard anything that I necessarily disagree with. I don't necessarily feel like he's preaching to me. I don't think I'm the target audience, but I do believe that there are people who would benefit from sitting under him or listening to his sermons. So that's all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get my thoughts out on that. I've been kind of holding on to that for a little bit, but I think it's good to finally talk it out a little bit. But I appreciate y'all listening to me ramble and rant for about 20 minutes. So y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night, y'all day. Be blessed. Love y'all. Love God. Stay holy. All right, peace.